so nice to be here with you today.
Nice to be here with you.
So did you have any like topic or anything that you would like to look at together?
The one thing that came to my mind is that delicate navigation between being in that state of like open-heartedness and trust and all of that, and sometimes needing to set boundaries. And it's like a human question in light of all these things we're studying. So
yeah.
This
is one of the reasons why I like talking to people. And also like this kind of stuff happens in my mind and just in general life anyway, but talking to people brings it more apparent. And I feel like for me and probably hopefully for you, it just makes things more clear in our minds. Because I think we bring in loads of things into spirituality, that don't really go there necessarily. Like it's like we kind of pick up ideas about what it means to be like you say in that state of open-heartedness. But like I kind of feel like at least what I'm talking about, it's not really like a state of, or at least when I hear that, sometimes when people hear like open-heartedness, they might feel like, okay, so maybe you feel expansive, you feel joyful, you feel connected, you feel in love, you're just open to whatever is, like that.
Actually, it's more specific than that. It's all of these things, but there's one aspect of that open-heartedness, which is like in trust, in trust with life, And sometimes I noticed, for me at least, trusting life can be confused with like, a child with a parent saying, do it for me, as opposed to like a co-creative kind of a thing where there's some choices to be made and some no's to be said to and some, and this is part of, I'm trusting the totality of that. It's not like I'm sitting back and having everything handed to me necessarily. It's also an active participation, and it's that part of the participation that sometimes is confusing.
That exploration, I feel like it's here as well, like at the moment, because I've started this year being a little bit more kind of focused and kind of like doing, like doing things, like I've started doing the artist's way. So I'm doing, morning pages every day. And then even before I decided to do that, I was thinking I'm going to like journal once a week and just kind of reflect on the week and to just see like what stands out about that week and would I do anything differently and what do I want to focus on in my life, like going into the next week type of thing. So it's very much a kind of a bringing your attention to things that you can do, isn't it? But I don't feel like, or the way I see it, it doesn't interfere with, I don't know the right word, but like spirituality or open-heartedness. Because even open-heartedness, I know we do talk about that sometimes and like being open and all, but really I feel at least what I'm interested in and what I like to talk about, it's more like, recognizing the truth of who you are. And that's beyond everything. It's beyond everything. And that doesn't mean, then that can sound like, okay, so if it's beyond everything, then you just completely ignore your life or something. So not really that either. It's not really that either. So I think it's more, I think when you recognize the truth of who you are, your inner wisdom kind of grows and your ability to like distinguish between different types of impulses. And I also think I was actually kind of reflecting on this bit like yesterday. And what came was just, like it really doesn't matter like what you do in your life. Like if you have an impulse to do something. So whether that's, like for me, it's like writing in my journal and making a plan for the week. Or if it's like I want to set a boundary within this relationship or the situation and just like state what's right for me or whatever it is that's occurring to us. I think we should follow that. And it's not about if it turns out right or wrong or if it itself is right or wrong, but whatever happens in life, we can learn from it. Like we're choosing our own learning, really. Like that's the way I like to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to get um discombobulated with just so many instructions and you know for your happiness, approach life from this angle, or do this or do that, or in order to receive all the goodies, do this and do that,
Yeah.
and and it's like nearly, I almost see it like a whirlwind of opinions and advice and tools and different things like that. And I see the value of nearly all of them, I think, because
Yeah.
like at different times they're like really, the thing I want to do. And yeah, there is this part of the ego construct, the personality, all of that just kind of wants to do it right in order to be happy,
Yeah.
and in order to secure that relationship or that job or whatever. Feel a purpose, feel a meaning.
There's a few things coming into my mind when you're talking. Like the first thing is, before I came into this meeting, what was with me was just like, because Daizan said, well, what are you going to talk about? Do you have any questions or anything? I was like, no, I don't know. I don't know. We're just going to turn up and just see what happens. It's fine. And then I was kind of, part of me feels like, just because it's something new, even though this is something we do all the time, but just because there's a new idea around it, it's like I kind of felt like, oh, I should know. Like there was that kind of feeling in my body. But then I was feeling, no, like I really don't need to know. And I feel like we really don't need to ever really know. And the thing is, I like what you said, you hear all these different things that you see as tools, and you just see them as like that. You see them as tools and something to make you happier or something. But like nobody really knows what you can do or what's the right thing. And even I was saying this to someone the other day, like we really don't know like what's right and what's wrong, and other people don't really know. And like maybe we know for ourselves. And she was like, yeah, I don't even really know for myself, which is also true. We can get a sense of something that we feel drawn to or what feels right. But I mean, we don't really know what's right or what's wrong. We just do.
Okay, so you just clarified exactly like the direction I was feeling towards. So the thing of knowing what's right, what's wrong is one thing. But once you've had an experience and you know that you don't want to choose that again, like say for example, you go into an agreement with somebody and you try it out and then it doesn't work out, it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel something for you, and then you want to change that agreement and and kind of say, this is the limit for me because I don't want to agree on this.
Yeah.
you can still do whatever you want to do, but I don't want to participate. And so this is saying a no, right? This is like you did get the clarity of like what isn't for you.
Yeah.
So where is this I don't know come in to all of that?
I suppose the I don't know is fits in that, like I think you can know in a moment what feels right, and you have to act on it because we have to trust something in our guidance for life. Otherwise, we would just stay in bed all day. Like, you have a feeling, I want to get up, so you get up. You have a feeling you want a cup of tea, you have a cup of tea. If you start doubting your impulses, that's going to be a very complicated life, and that's really thinking too much. Like, I don't know, maybe is like I don't know where it leads. I don't know what's going to happen from it. And even like, I don't know if it's ultimately better, like good for me or not. Like, you just don't know. You don't really know, but you do know that that's what you want to do in that moment. You don't even have to know. It's just, it's already there. It's like, because it's like, it is what is, like, so that impulse is there. There's no question about that. Like, and there's an impulse that you want to share. Like, you don't even need to question it necessarily.
So the impulse, you mean to say no?
Whatever the impulse is, yeah. So like for you in that story, it's like it might be the impulse to say no, yeah. Because the thing is, you started this conversation as well with like, where does the kind of open-heartedness fit in with this? And I think when you're using the word open-heartedness, I think it means like what we usually talk about, which is just recognizing the truth of who you are, and yeah, like just kind of letting life unfold, and we're not separate from all that is. Like, where does that fit into? It's kind of like, how can I live my life then? So it's not like that they're totally apart or that they're totally together. It's more just that within everything, no matter what's happening, we recognize that this is not really me in the story. Like, it's a story of you, and then it's like, the more you recognize that those things are free to kind of behave the way they want, in a way. So let's say like the body mind of Maya is like a story that's appearing within you. And if there's an impulse to say no within that story of Maya, where it gets complicated is like, we kind of start thinking about it too much. We start thinking about it too much and trying to control the way it goes and working it out. But I want it to go this way, so I'm going to have to do this. Whereas it's very, very simple. Like, if you don't really get in the way and don't try to control it, it's just, there's an impulse to set a boundary. I'm going to set a boundary. So it's kind of like when the more you recognize the truth of who you are, then your expression is allowed to be itself. It kind of flows, and it's not that, it's kind of in words. Sometimes it sounds like it's different. It sounds like the body mind expression is different from you, and of course that's not true. It's like an extension of you. So maybe that's a better way to talk then also. So the extension of you is more free, and really your true self can express then through the body mind when you're not trying to interfere with it. So it's kind of, sometimes it's like thinking too much. Like, we don't have to be afraid of making mistakes. It's very kind of simple, really.
Yeah, you're right. Like, it's really it kind of scales back into this like fear of making a mistake and of a perceived future that might be bad, and all of these imaginations, and that would mean something about who I am, and it doesn't. It doesn't mean anything about who we are. It doesn't change, like, exactly, any mistakes or whatever. But that's, this is so easy to fall into, because being in touch with who we really are is a fleeting thing for me.
Yeah.
So I would love to like have one of your lovely meditations to kind of get into.
So that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing, I suppose. Like, it can be a fleeting thing, but if it's something that we want in our heart, like we want to become more aware of it, and we want to know it and be it and live it, then we also kind of have to choose to tune into that part of ourselves. And that was another thing I wanted to say to you as well when you were talking, was I go to a meeting like once a week or once every 2 weeks. It's like a centering prayer meeting. But the people in that meeting, I just feel they're so wise. Like, so we basically sit for like 20 minutes in silence, and then we have a chat. And it's really nice because there's no kind of hierarchy. There's no like guru there, which I think is really great, because it gives people the freedom to just speak from their heart without feeling like there's someone above them or something like that. So like, so much wisdom comes out of everybody, and like, I feel like they're very wise without really kind of recognizing it. Like, they're very humble. Like, there's a lot of humility, which I really love as well. But one of the women there was kind of just saying something like the essence of it was, it really doesn't matter if she makes mistakes kind of all the time, but like, because God knows her intention, and her intention is to live from her heart. And yes, she does make mistakes, and she goes back into her mind, and maybe she has an argument with someone, or she's whatever, this or that. But like, she chooses to keep coming back whenever she can. And just simply that like, God knows her intention. And also that kind of God, which is another way of saying, you could say kind of universal intelligence, like life. I like to think like the energy of life is so super intelligent, really. God, like, sometimes people have a difficulty with God, but God is good. It's kind of all encompassing word. but just that God knows our intentions, and to trust that, like, so that brings it back down to your kind of trust things.
So she has strong identity of someone who knows contact God. Not everybody has that.
Not everybody has that. Yeah, everyone has different ways. We also talk about this kind of thing. Everyone has different ways of thinking about things. But I kind of feel like everybody is on the journey, that same journey. But sometimes we think about God. And of course, it does get much kind of easier when you feel, no, really, you kind of know inside your heart. So even she was saying this, like that, when she talks to her husband kind of says, oh, that's nice. But it's just a belief. And she's like, yeah, but I know it's not a belief. And somehow you do know it's not a belief in yourself when you're discovering God inside your own heart. You know that it's not a belief because it's your direct experience, really. You're recognizing it's the same as recognizing your true self. You're recognizing that, okay, there's something here that I am and I always am. And I'm not what I have taken myself to be. Like we're taking ourselves to be a set of ideas, really. Like I'm this kind of person, I'm that kind of person, this is my role, this is my role. But when we kind of quieten down and just kind of look where all that information is going to, you recognize, okay, it's kind of just like quiet there. It's kind of just silent. And the more you kind of tune into that space, you could say, inside yourself, it kind of becomes more and more clear that that is not apart from all that is, from God, from life. Like that's your life, really, where all the information is going to within you. So that means you're not everything that you thought you were. You're not a set of ideas. So that can't really be a belief, because if it was a belief, you'd be referring to your mind, but you're not referring to your mind. You're referring to just actually what you experience. Like it's kind of almost the most fundamental experience. Like all experiences arise. All experiences arise within that, within you. And in a way, when you notice that, that's what gives rise, you could say, to more and more trust as well. Although I feel like you could definitely have trust even before you recognize that. But it definitely grows trust quite a lot. And also you can understand that there's space for everything. It really doesn't matter. Like then what are you trying to achieve? So we usually get caught up in this kind of story of a body mind, and it's trying to achieve something. It's trying to fix something. It's trying to be happier, be healthier, have better relationship. But when you recognize that you're already complete and whole and completely fulfilled, like as you are, then that is kind of secondary. All of that stuff is secondary. And I don't think it becomes completely, I don't know the word, I'm sure there's a word, the word that's coming like is obliterated. Is that the right word? Like, I don't think it becomes completely irrelevant or completely gone. Maybe for some people it can, but I think it becomes secondary because you recognize that it's really not really true. It's going to impact, like anything you do in your life, it's going to impact your experience of life. But that's it really. And maybe if you recognize it, then maybe something grows in your heart, like you kind of live for God, you could say. You're living for God more. So maybe the work that you do is, and I think this is what many people are doing without knowing. It's like we're kind of wanting to get rid of our personal ideas. And really that's just so that, because personal ideas kind of stand in the way of just the flow of life. No, I don't think they really do. I think life's still going to flow anyway, but maybe they do a little bit. They definitely get in the way of like the feeling of the flow.
Yeah, I mean, there's less peace, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
you can say my yearning right now is that sense of peace, of this just landing somewhere inside of me in that trust, in that that God knows my intentions and that all of it is good, and it's there's no judgment, that it's just I guess there's a big part of me that kind of might get twisted in knots because of assumed or real judgment,
Because you see, there's no ideas in God or in yourself, in your true self, in your heart. There's no judgments or ideas. So there's nothing there that's saying, no, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, or you should do this, or you should do that. So in a way, that's kind of the openness and the trust. It's it's the same thing. There's nothing that says that it's wrong to make boundaries or it's right to make boundaries. It's everything is allowed. Everything is allowed in the heart of God. And people, of course, a mind will come up with arguments for that. What about murder or something? But in a way, maybe it's not that action doesn't come from the self, but it can still be used by the self for good. I feel like life or God can use everything and does use everything for the greater good. It might not. Well, see, it doesn't really agree or disagree. It just is. It just is. So we pick up all ideas about what is the self and how can I live it in my life? But the thing is, I don't think we have to live it in our life. It's more like just we recognize ourselves and then we just keep recognizing ourselves, because recognizing yourself and being yourself is kind of the same. So if you're behaving in ways that you're confused and all, we're probably not recognizing ourselves in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, somehow I'm noticing just how much the opinions and judgments of apparent people in my life and of myself is just running the show so much. It's so, I mean, and my reaction to it, or in my forgetfulness of who I am in the face of that,
Yeah. But even just your noticing is already you really being in your true self. It's just if another thing comes in and says it should be this way or it should be that way, and you identify with it, because really all that happens in life is that you're becoming more and more conscious of what happens inside you all the time. You're not afraid to see it. Your light comes to everything, and then it doesn't, I don't know if it really matters what happens in your life. I don't really like those words. I haven't found better words, because in a way maybe it does matter, because of course it matters to us, or else we wouldn't be living. Life is important and how we express is important. Otherwise we wouldn't even
Thank you for saying that. It's really, yeah.
We wouldn't even have these conversations otherwise, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But it is really just the more we recognize the truth of who we are, that really does bring peace into our lives. So sometimes it's said, when you recognize the truth of who you are, it's not for the person, it doesn't impact your life. So I understand what's meant by that, but also it does impact your life because it impacts your life, not because it benefits the person, but it impacts your life because it takes you out of being personal, and taking things personally and identifying with different thoughts and ideas. And maybe it also helps us to be less judgmental and more compassionate for ourselves and people around us as well. But first, it has to be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I give you an example?
Yeah, please.
So I got back to smoking, and I think it drives Zoran crazy. He really, really hates it. And I'm not really sure what causes this big reaction in him but the very few cigarettes a day that I smoke, he probably only sees me smoke one a day, or I might smoke 2 or 3, but it's very it's not in his face too much. I tried it to be certainly not inside the home. And yes, the smell sticks to my clothes, but I think there's more to it than that. And he reacts really, really angrily.
Yeah.
And so for some reason at the moment, I'm drawn to smoking, and it may not be for very much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Like with this cold now, and coming off of the cold, there's a lot of coughing, and the coughing is not pleasant. It might be my wish now to not smoke, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that I have this relationship with his opinion.
Yeah.
It's really tied up in knots. I feel it in my solar plexus. It's really, and in my throat. It's like either rebellion or cowering under a strong labeling or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really interesting how it touches him and how it touches me.
Yeah. Do you feel like you want to do something about your reaction, or what comes up in you?
Yeah, I just want to feel peaceful with whatever. I want to feel peaceful with whatever it is I'm choosing to do, and to stop from my internal reasons, not because somebody has a judgment that I'm trying to please.
Yeah, so I suppose the question could be something, the question is something like, how can you, like, or for you, like, how can I be at peace when he's angry at me? Something like that, would it be? Like, can you be peaceful with just letting him be angry?
I didn't hear that. The connection wasn't good.
Okay, can you be peaceful with letting him be angry?
Yeah, it is in a way, because it's not just letting him be angry, but hearing again and again how what I'm doing is not okay for him.
Okay.
And makes, so it's a reoccurring thing. It's not like a moment where he's angry and I just need to bear it for a moment. It's like, yeah.
Well, I guess that can come, like, this is up to you really, but like what's coming is like could be a matter of you asserting your boundaries. Well, how do you feel about that? Because it does include you and he's talking to you about your actions. If it comes
and
coming back
in
to
a sense,
basics.
you laugh at it, but the way, like, we had the situation with Ella, and the question about, like, is he gonna continue talking to this woman in such an intensive way, or can I draw a boundary here that it's just really not comfortable for me, and it's something about a relationship, and it's asking for his consideration in how that feels for me, and still wanting to find other ways that he can experience the freedom and the excitement or whatever, but not with somebody who lives with us. And then he said okay, and he agreed to pull back from that. And then after a few days, a thought occurred to him, well, if I'm giving this one up, can you give up cigarettes? Can you also give up something?
Okay.
And we both were kind of laughing, because it's kind of ridiculous, because in a way, like, one is about our relationship, which is kind of like, in a sense, my business, or connected to me, relative to what kind of relationship I want to have. The other one is totally over my body, but at the same time, he sees where my smoking is affecting him. For example, the smell, or if I'm not healthy, then he will have more to carry in the future. That's his thought, He will have to take care of more things if I'm not healthy, if I don't take care of my health. So it goes into this very gray zone of what's your prerogative to say and what's not.
Yeah, I suppose,
you know?
I guess communication is important in a relationship if you both have to be allowed to have the freedom to communicate. But if he's trying to coerce you or something,
Yeah.
that's different. Like you have to be able to express, like so he can express, I want you to give up, and you can express, no, I don't want to. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose you kind of have to be allowed to
And we
express.
have to find our peace with it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's when it's on a loop of I'm disapproving of you,
Mm,
on a loop, and I'm not doing anything about it,
yeah, I feel like when things like
you
that,
know, on any
yeah,
side.
I guess it's an invitation to us always, like, to bring whatever the story is, to bring it back to ourselves as much as we can. And also to,
Mm.
at least for some of the time, to kind of let go of the story and just notice what feelings it brings up for us and actually let ourselves really experience that. So the feeling of him being,
Yeah.
disapproving of your actions, however that feels, like tune into it and
Yeah.
invite it to even multiply and
Mm.
really let that in, because
Mm.
probably it does come from somewhere else. Like it usually always does, isn't it? Like some these kind of feelings live in us anyway.
For
And then
sure.
this the
Yes,
story
for
the
sure.
story is actually a gift. The
Yeah.
story is a gift to help it to come out. But often we don't kind of let it. We still keep trying to keep it down, repress. And often, like, definitely self-reflection is good and looking at thoughts
Yeah.
and questioning thoughts.
Yeah.
But I think a really big thing is to just let go of all thoughts and stories for at least for some of the time and just really let ourselves feel the feeling. And sometimes that's enough, like to really change, bring about a change in us, to really let ourselves feel whatever that could be. Like it could be just a really upsetness, it doesn't have to even be logical. You might kind of cry and feel really sad that you're not being accepted or whatever it is. And sometimes when you let yourself feel
Yeah.
whatever feeling is there, maybe another type of story or another storyline can come up as well. But then you can
Mm.
find then when you approach that situation the next time, even though it didn't seem like anything happened and you just let yourself feel it, but the next time you're in that situation, then it just doesn't affect you quite so much. He says, I don't like when you smoke, and he's angry and all,
Mm.
and you're just like, okay. But like somehow it doesn't affect you as deeply. We often see that. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen that in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Thanks for the reminder. It's actually
Mm.
yeah, it's a great reminder to bring it back to myself and the feeling place and just being with the feeling and welcoming the feeling and yeah, rather than running away trying to change things on the outside before I can not feel that feeling, you know.
Exactly.
It's
We
it's
have-
such a great reminder. Even
Yeah.
though I do this with people, it's my job. It's
Yeah.
so great to receive that.
I think it's really
Yeah.
important. It is so important, and we need to remind ourselves like over and over again because it's so easy for us to get caught up in the story.
Mm-mm.
And even like we think we're being kind of
So much.
spiritual or we think we're being self-reflective, but
Yeah.
actually we're just trying to work out the story with our minds, trying to think about it and work it out, like look at all the different aspects and work it out.
Yeah.
But actually,
Yeah.
it's not that you can never work things out that way. Like I think sometimes you can as well, but it's probably just a lot longer and more difficult and
Yeah.
much more suffering and stressful. Like it's very peaceful. I feel like to
Yeah.
just let ourselves feel something, even if it's a difficult emotion, already in the letting ourselves feel it, love is present because you're really settling back
Mm.
into yourself and you're kind of being compassionate with yourself in a way. I don't know exactly what the word compassionate means, but
Yeah.
it's like you're
The
kind of,
very thing I want from him,
hmm,
I would
exactly.
be giving it to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really the only way. Like, and then the other
Yeah.
person, often we do see that the other person then changes, something in them changes, and it can seem like a miracle. Like they got sometimes I write like things to myself, and then I feel like, wow, he got the memo.
Hmm.
Like somehow, like the other people get the
Yeah.
message. But sometimes that doesn't happen as well. But like
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter because
Yeah.
really it's about being peaceful with whatever arises within ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And a good way of doing that, because you're already doing it, you don't even have to change, to just choose to be with whatever is arising. That's already being peaceful with what is. Like you're kind of making peace with whatever is there. There's no doing involved really. Like it's already done. It's kind of like like they say, the means and the end are the same.
Mm.
And it's okay if we forget sometimes. I feel like this conversation is reminding us, and different things remind us. Sometimes we're in a flow of kind of grace, you could say, where that memory or that thing just happens by itself, where we're just with everything that comes up. And sometimes we need reminders. And sometimes we forget for a while and we suffer a little bit, but it's okay. Like we don't have to be hard on ourselves with it.
Yeah, I find that life is really bringing me the conversations, the people, even like the most kind of people from like that never met before, all of a sudden coming to my life and start having this really deep conversation with me and remind me exactly of this or of something else, or something that comes out inside of me in response to them reminds me, and it's like these reminders, life provides these reminders. It really does.
Yeah. That's like your own kind of intention or your own kind of call to peace. It's like once you have that in your heart, like it's like life is reflecting. You're being undone.
Lovely. It sounds scary and wonderful at once.
Yeah. I don't know why our mind makes it scary, because there's really nothing scary about it. It's really like you're just stepping more into love all the time. And you're not even stepping into love, because love is already here. It's like you're actually just recognizing the love that's here already. So there's really nothing scary about that. But I don't know why our mind does make it scary. But it has to be like that,
Because
like
the mind is the part that gets undone.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like that, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like it doesn't really matter what feelings are here. And the thing is, we're not doing it, it's just happening. And one thing I want to say before we're finished, and I think it's important, or it's important in my world, that I don't think we need to kind of judge or distinguish or make a difference if sometimes it feels very much like we're bathed in grace, for lack of better words. Like sometimes everything is very flowing, and it's very easy to be compassionate with ourselves, and we feel connected and we feel loving towards people even when they're angry at us. We can go through a phase like that and it's like, oh wow, this is so good. I like this. And like we don't even need reminders, but like it's okay if they come, but like it's totally present. But then sometimes when we kind of seem to go a little bit off track and we need reminders, or like we get a little bit confused or something, like I think it's totally okay, and life just plays like that. That's how life plays, and there's no need for any extra
self-judgment and
anything like that. Like it's totally okay. It really doesn't matter. Like it's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful Sunday, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yes.
Ciao, ciao.